Hello and welcome back. My name is Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media. So in the last video, I showed you how to be able to set up your own iSCSI targets with FreeNas. And in that video, I did promise you that I would show you how to set up NFS shares, which are network file shares. Now, network file shares are a Unix, Linux type of file share. So if you're very familiar with Samba or SMB shares, which are Windows shares, then NFS is kind of like that for the Linux and Unix world. And then if you look inside of FreeNas, so right now you'll see that I've got FreeNas open and I'm looking at my services. I've got some Unix shares in here, which are NFS shares. I've got some Windows shares in here, which are SMB shares. I even have some WebDAV shares set up, and that's a little bit different protocol. And then of course I've got my block iSCSI set up in here. Now iSCSI, you got to remember, the iSCSI one is not really a share as it is a block data device like a hard drive. So it's basically turning a file or a device on your NAS server into an actual hard drive. Now, multiple computers can access that hard drive, so it is kind of it is almost like having a NAS drive with a DAS type of setup, so a direct access share, but on a network attached share. So it's a little bit interesting, a little bit of a mixed network. So if you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about those things, then 100% you get it. So awesome. Anyway, back to our NFS shares. So you'll see I've got some NFS shares set up in here. Now the real reason why I set up the NFS shares is that I have a couple of Android boxes that are running the latest version. Well, actually they're not. They're running the Jarvis 6.16.1 version of Kodi. Krypton, at the time of the release of this video, when I made this video, the newest version of Krypton had not come out yet, so I have not tested Krypton. I think it's 17.2. 17.2 might have fixed some of the buffering issues that was happening in 17 Krypton. So I think they just released 17.2, and I'll be testing that this week to see if it's removed some of the buffering issues that I was having with Kodi. And the issue that I was having with Kodi, and I'll just go into it a little bit, is that I was using a Kodi box, the actual Android boxes that I have. I was running Kodi on Android, and before, when I was running Jarvis, everything was fine. I could play a movie. All my movies are stored here on this server. Everything worked perfectly. I could play a movie. It played to the end. There were really no drop frames. But ever since upgrading those Android boxes to Krypton, I've had issues with video buffering a lot. So even locally, and I'm not streaming video, because all the video that I, well, not all of it, but most of the video that I consume comes from the local server. Because one, I took the DVDs and the Blu-rays and ripped them, and I have that information here locally. So that's one of the big things. The other thing is that doing it locally, I don't have to worry about buffering over the internet. So there should be no buffering. That was the whole point, to eliminate the idea of having buffering for some things. So anyway, with installing Krypton, I started having really bad buffering issues. And then videos just stopped playing in the middle of the video and went back to the home screen of Kodi. So at first I thought it was the Android boxes. It was not the Android boxes. There was nothing wrong with them. They are quad core, and they are based off the AM Logic S905. So they're S905 AM Logics. They're really good chips. They run really well. I'm about to switch those out for some S912s. So I have S905s. They're not the 905Xs, they're just the 905s. So the AM Logic S905, and it was really working really well. 2 gigs of RAM. It's a pretty beefy little Android box, because Android, as you know, it does not use a lot of resources. So anyway, with that happening, I believed it was the boxes at first. Then I thought maybe it was my Kodi MySQL database, because I do run a centralized database for Kodi so that I can start and stop different movies and basically just have like a gigantic DVR. So I can start a movie in one room, stop it, and get to another room, and it'll actually remember where I stopped it in the last place that it was played at. And you can only do that if you have a centralized MySQL database for Kodi to look at. So I have that set up. So I thought maybe that was getting slow. So I went into PHP My Admin, did a cleanup on that database. Everything in that database was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. There was no corruption in the database. So push come to shove, started looking at Samba, and I know that Samba shares for Windows 10, Samba shares are probably the main thing that you want to use. You probably would not want to use a different type of share with Windows unless you're going to do iSCSI. Samba shares are pretty fast. On the network that I have currently right now for Samba shares, for the write speed, I'm getting like, I think that I'm getting, well, from writing from a Samba back to the Windows machine, I'm getting about 60 megs a second, and then to write from my machine to the actual NAS over Samba, I'm hitting about 90 megs a second. So that's not an issue. That's not a bottleneck there. But what I felt like is that there could have been a bottleneck with the Samba client on Android, because you have to remember that Kodi is basically running a Samba client of its own on Android, and Android by default doesn't really have Samba. Like, that's not something that is natively a part of Android. I'm running Android 5. I think it's 5.1, which is Lollipop, I believe, and there is really not a native way of Samba. Now, Kodi has a Samba client on top of it, which it installs when you install Kodi. Now, programs like ES File Explorer, they also have Samba clients, but I've always noticed that the Samba clients the Samba shares are a little bit slow. So to kind of counteract that, I wanted to install an NFS share. So doing the NFS share is actually pretty simple. The first thing I want to do with any of these new services that you start, if it's a service that you don't already have, you want to make sure you go to Services. And I'm going to go here to Control Services, and you'll look, there's one for NFS. I'm going to turn that on. So now NFS is on. And I can come in here and actually add a new Unix NFS share. So I'm going to say add, and you have to give it a path. So I'm going to go to Browse. I can go in here to Mount. I can go to these are different pools. This is pool 1, 2. This is a separate pool. This is a OneDrive pool, and then this is another pool altogether. So I could come in here and say, I want to go to the second pool and open this up. Let's give it a second. It's acting kind of slow. Not a huge deal. But open this up, and I can go in here and I can say movies, and what it will do is that this will be the path for this share. So I'm just going to set this to /mount /phx media 2 and then movies, and then I can hit OK. Now I'm not going to do that on that one because I've already made these shares. But if I go in here and look at the share, I'll double click on it. You can see that there's my share /mount phx media /movies, and in there I can comment this and say this is a movie drive, and I can also say that I want all directories, and I can even make it read-only if I wanted to. I could make this a read-only share so that you can only read from it. And if I open up the Advanced tab, you can see that I can set up authorized networks. So I can set up authorized computers that could get to these shares. So if the computer was not listed in this whitelist, it would not be able to have this share. I can also do the same thing with host. So I can do this with host names. So it can either be found on a network or not found on a network, in that as well. And like I say, I've got all directories. I can make it read only. I can even make it quiet so there's no verbose that runs back for this. And then I can map a root user. If I want to have a root user that gets root access to this, I can go ahead and set this up to like root. I can set up a group, and then I can do a map all user or a map all group. And then I can also go in here and set up security like sys or KRB 5, 5i, or 5p, and set up different types of security on top of this share. So this share is actually pretty simple to actually have. It's a pretty standard type of share. So once I've got that set up, I can go and be able to connect to that. So the way that I'm connecting to it currently is through using Kodi. So if I go in here and I look at, and I think I have them turned off, but we'll go back in here and turn them on just for right now. So I'm going to go in here and this is actually on the PC here. I'm actually running Kodi 17. So you have to forgive me. Some things are in a little bit different place. There we go. So media. And let's say we want to be able to, just going to look at media. So I go to videos. And they changed a lot of the way this stuff is kind of laid out. So if I go in here and say add videos, I'll just right click on this and edit this source. So we'll see right now I've got NFS shares set up for the movies 2, movies, and then Kodi movies. So if I go in here and I say browse, when I go to set this up, you'll see I've got an NFS server set up in here. So if I was going to add this brand new, let's act like you're gonna add this brand new to your Kodi. I'm going to say add network location, and instead of using SMB, which is Samba, I'm going to come back in here, and you can see that Kodi allows you to use a couple of different secure protocols. You can use SSH to set your stuff up, and FreeNas does allow SSH as well. So you can do SSH, you can do NFS, and you can do an RSS feed, you can do a UPnP server, FTP, WebDAV, and then WebDAV Secure, which is with the HTTPS, and then also just do regular HTTP. So you have choices what you can use. So right now I'm going to set up an NFS server. So I just want to give it the address. So the address is going to be 10.1.10.16, which is the address of my FreeNas box. And then also you can come in here and you can browse where you want it to go. So when I add in the actual server, you can see right here, actually it's not letting me browse. So let's do remote path. So the remote path, I'm going to come in here and it's going to be /mount. So you do have to know some stuff that you're doing. I don't need a / on that. I just need mount / and this is going to be phx media 2 and then / movies. I believe that's what it is. So I'm going to say done, and that's where it is. So now everything should be set up. So that should really be it. There's no port to set. There's no username to set. Everything's kind of in there. And if I go in there now, well, it's going to tell me because I didn't put it in right. But the other thing is I already have it set up. So if I go in here and click on that, you can see the minute that I click on my NFS share, you'll see that the NFS shares that are set up all fall underneath here. And this is really cool because this lets me get top level access really quick. So I can click on this and boom, I'm right there. And this is, in my opinion, the NFS share with Kodi works a little bit faster and is a little bit better. Now, if you want to set up NFS shares with Windows, that makes a little bit of a problem. By default, Windows does not really like NFS. So you've got to do some things to turn on NFS. The first thing is you want to come in here. I'm going to right click on my Windows icon, on my Windows taskbar icon, and I'm going to go in here and go to Programs and Features. So I'm going to go to Programs and Features, and while you're in here with Programs and Features, make sure you come here to where it says Turn Windows Features On and or Off. So I'm going to click on that, and you'll see it says Turn Windows Features On. I'm going to look in here for Service for NFS. Ugh, it's a mouthful. So service for NFS. So if I click this open, you'll see I've got administrative tools and I've got client tools. I want to check this so that both of these are turned on. When those are turned on, it's going to take some time to apply it, and once it applies it, they'll actually be on and they'll be running. Now, to actually set up a share, you have to do this, unfortunately, you have to do this from command line. So from the command line, we're going to type in mount, and there are some flags you can use, and then I'm going to do -O. And the flags, I will put this link in the description. So these are the flags for how to be able to use the mount command. So you can see you can do a read buffer, a write buffer, a timeout, a retry. You can also soft or hard mount this. You can mount it as an anonymous user. You can disable locking, which I would suggest you do. And then you can also set the file access. So if you do file access equals, and then if you do 0, you'll have no access. 1, you can execute. 2, you can write. 3, you can write and execute. 4, so you can see they're all in here, and then you can see whether it's case sensitive and everything else. So I'm going to type out the rest of this. So I'm going to say mount, and I've done this a couple of times. So I'm going to say file access equals 7, and then no lock, and then // give it the IP address 16, and you have to give it the share name as well. So this is going to be mounted to the PHX, and you need it has to be strict. So the cases do make a difference. All right, so and then say movies 2. And then at the end of this, if you want to mount this with a drive letter, you need to give it the drive letter. So I'm just going to say B and then colon, and then hit enter. And you will see there, it gives me file access. Oh, I misspelled access. So let's go back here. So, boop. So you can see, I just misspelled access, so that was all that was. So access is there. If I go and open up a Windows Explorer, you'll now see, if I go in here to my computer, you'll see there's my C drive, D drive. So all my drives are in there. And you'll also see right here, there is that B drive. So there's my B drive sitting right there, and there's my B drive. So it shows up almost just like a network. I mean, it's a network share. So you'll see it show up like a network share file. So it's still very similar to the way that Samba works, except you can't just do it from the actual GUI. You can't do it from the graphical user interface. You've got to do it from command line, which makes it a little daunting for some people. Some people don't like it because you are doing it from the command line. But that's only if you want to access your NFS share from Windows. If you just want it for Kodi, all you have to do, even on a Windows machine, all you have to do is just go into the actual menu that I had you in before. So all you got to do is go in here and just add, and just go in here and have your NFS already set up, and everything else works. So you don't have to have the NFS client installed on Windows to use NFS shares on Windows for Kodi. Right, so let's get that right. It's only for Kodi, because Kodi has its own NFS protocols built into Kodi at the base level of it. So I've done the same thing for my Kodi boxes. The Kodi boxes, and I hate to say Kodi boxes because they're really not Kodi boxes. They're Android boxes, right? So my Android boxes, they're running Kodi and they're using NFS. And I will say, since using the NFS protocol, I have not had any more drop video or drops of frames or any kind of weird glitches happening. So I'm not 100% sure if that's what fixed it, but I can say that it hasn't hurt. And also, like I said before, the NFS share is a little bit quicker and easier for Android to understand, because Android, realistically, at the base of Android, it is a Linux system. It's a Linux, basically it's a Linux system. That's why you hear a lot of people talking about root access. If you hear someone say, you know, you need to root your Android device, that's what you're doing. You're basically activating the root account, which is something you really never want to do on a Linux device. You don't want to give something root access, because then it has access to everything in the machine. But I say the same thing about Windows. Windows shouldn't be given root access. If you're a Windows user, you should have a administrator account set up that administers everything for your computer. And then even if you are the only person using that computer, you should then set up a regular user account that does not have access to everything. Because if you get malware, sometimes if you have administrative access, it'll run without you even letting it, without it even letting you know. If you are running it at a lower level, then sometimes Windows will catch something that's trying to open or run without your permission. So anyway, I hope that this NFS share has been helpful. If it has, then definitely hit that subscribe button, because you can get new and fresh videos like this right here on the Phoenix Inception Dr. Media channel. And if you liked it, give it a thumbs up, and if you didn't like it, give it a thumbs down. And I look forward to seeing your comments down below. If you have comments or questions or things that you want to see me do here on the channel, then leave those things down in the comments. I do check my comments. If you look back at my videos, I try to go through all my comments and check them, and be able to talk to my community, because I'm doing this for my community. So it's all for you men and women out there of tech. So to my digital mutants, I sign off. I am Dr. Delmico L. Cunningham, better known as Dr. Media.